Coming up on this week's show, is it the end for retrobrighting? And a rare Sonic arcade cabinet goes up for auction.
And the Spectrum gets a new FPS.
And the Retro Hour podcast is brought to you every Friday with our sponsor, our good friends at Bitmap Books. Now, of course, today, lots of chat about classic point-and-click adventures. Speaking of which, if you're a fan of that genre, have you seen their amazing book, The Art of Point-and-Click Adventure Games, in stock right now on their website and weighing in at a gorgeous 528 pages. This hardback coffee table book is packed with the very best pixel art and classic scenes from the games that really define that genre. All the big ones are in there. The King's Quest series, Myst, Secret of Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, Full Throttle, even some that you might not be too familiar with that might have flown under the radar a little bit, like Flight of the Amazon Queen. Love that game. So if you love your point-and-click adventure games, there's also 50 extensive exclusive interviews with some of the biggest developers, designers and artists in that genre. Check it out right now and get the rest of their retro gaming collection at bitmapbooks.com. Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 510, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
And me, Ravi Abbott.
And that is it. Well, that's weird, Ravi.
I know, I'm waiting for the me, Joe folks.
No, I think like everyone in the world at the moment, Joe's come down with the lurgy. He's got the dreaded man flu. So we said to him, rest up this week because we want him fit and healthy for our final episode of 2025 that is coming up next week, which of course is the big one, the Retro Hour annual Christmas Super Quiz. It needs to be on form for that one.
Yeah, and interestingly this year, you know, we've had a demand, which is get some patrons involved, which I think is really cool getting the wider community in because usually you guys rig it so I lose.
No rigging required, I'll just say.
Yeah, and I think adding patrons in, thanks. I think adding patrons in adds like a wild card element. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting this year.
Yeah, so we're all, basically, there's going to be 3 teams on the quiz this year. It's going to be hosted by Paul Drury and Ollie, as always. They're back for Christmas, like Santa. And you're going to have, who's on your team then? You're going to have Matthew.
Matthew Beamian. Yeah. Matthew. Yeah.
Wonderful member of our community. I've got Namco's on my team. If you're ever on the Hangouts, you know, I'm fingers crossed. I think he's got a pretty good arcade and console knowledge, which obviously is kind of where I fall down. I'm a bit of a computer guy. So I needed someone with a bit of console knowledge on my team. And then Joe's going to be joined by the wonderful Tommy.
Yes.
So, yeah, it should be really good. It's interesting because normally we can, when we got the teams, you always get a bit of a gut instinct. I think it could go anyway this year.
Yeah. I wouldn't put money on anyone. And good luck with the edit as well. I think there's going to be 9 people on there, Dan, so that should be good fun.
Yeah, so fingers crossed we get it out in time for Christmas. But yeah, so we have got one normal episode of the podcast, our final usual format show of 2025, which actually, ironically, is completely different because it's just me and you. We're trying to think actually, weren't we? Because when we started this podcast, first like 2 episodes was just me and you. Then Joe
joined on the 3rd episode and then kind of went away for a bit and then went, I actually quite like this, and joined us and then been there for the long run. But a lot of people were used to us to just doing stuff on YouTube together and talks and stuff like that. So, we're going a bit old school. I don't know when the last one was. Yeah.
Just me and you. God, it must be at least 8-9 years ago.
Probably when Joe was ill, or I know you've done one with Joe and stuff when I've been ill as well. So,
So we've got real old school for this week's show. I've got a feeling it might get a bit more geeky than usual.
Yeah, he kind of like holds our geekiness back and makes us relate to the public a bit more. So I already miss it.
Yeah, expect some mega nerdism on this week's show. Before we do that, though, we have got, of course, an amazing guest, our final guest of 2025. Now, again, it's something that you and I don't need any excuse to talk about. Point-and-click adventure games, one of my favourite genres.
Yeah, so we've got Dave Lloyd, and he's from, we've been saying Power Hoof. I would say Power Hoof, but in English, I don't know. This is an Australian studio from Melbourne. One of the best indie game studios around at the moment. Absolutely exceptional games that they've been releasing. If you don't know of them, then this episode, you're really going to become aware of them because there's a fantastic, I can't rave about it enough, point and click adventure called The Drifter, which has just won multiple awards this year. really, really helping like continue that revival that we saw with like Thimbleweed Park of the point and click genre.
Yeah, it's the thing. So you were playing this game the other week and you said, right, we need to get these guys on.
I was just like, everything, just like the storyline, the music, the art behind it, the pacing as well. Yeah. It's not one of these ones. I remember having to travel through maps and having really odd, obscure things that you had to put together to complete quizzes and quests on point and click adventures. And I'd be like, what, that works with that to open that door? Yeah. But this one's very much based on the storyline. With some wonderful, wonderful voice acting. Like every character is really well fleshed out. It's got an 80s aesthetic, kind of very inspired by John Carpenter, who's one that I absolutely love, his movies, direction. And also it's good to talk about game jams and like the development of indie games in Australia, because it's a scene that we really don't know. Yeah,
it's definitely somewhere. I think we need to get to Australia to do a game show at some point. So if anyone knows of
if we get over the flight, we're going to have to do that. I'd love to go though. Yeah, that would be great.
We were checking out our podcast stats, weren't we, for the end of the year? We've actually got a pretty decent audience in Australia. So it's definitely cool to cover a bit more of that part of the world. And again, point and click adventures. I love what David and the team at Powerhof are doing, because it's kind of a throwback to the games that we all grew up playing. Particularly The Dig was a big influence on this game. He talks about, which was a LucasArts adventure, originally meant to be a Steven Spielberg movie, wasn't it? That then was a bit too ambitious, and then they decided we'll make a game out of it instead.
And also I think some of the stuff, like they're aiming for modern consoles. They're aiming to also really have good, strong stuff like controller support, which is pretty rare in a point and click. Actually, it's always been a second kind of thought, to have controller support.
And obviously being the retro, I had plenty of old school chat with him as well from his early days on his amber screen PC, playing classic adventures, and really interesting chat. So if you haven't checked out any of these modern indie adventure games and other stuff they've done as well, all pixel art based, chiptune, it's really, really good. It's going to be chatting to Dave Lloyd from Powerhof Games. He's our special guest. If you're listening on the audio podcast, you'll get that in part 2. If you're on YouTube, that will land on Monday. Now, before we get into first part of the show and have a bit of a chat about what's been going on in retro this week, I say a big thank you as well to everyone who's ordered this little beauty that I'm holding in my hand right now. This is a copy of the Retro Hour book. Now, we have been mentioning over the last couple of weeks, we did this book as a Kickstarter 2 or 3 years ago, and we actually got sent a few copies that our distributor just found at his warehouse. He goes, I've had about another 80 odd of your books.
There's a box in the corner. What's in here? And it's, when they did the original print run. Which is pretty amazing, and we've been selling them recently, which is like, I've got these shelves at home with quite a few on them, and the shelves are starting to get smaller and smaller, and we had a huge amount of orders recently, so I started putting them out, and it's really nice actually. As we've been putting the news out, people have been saying, I wasn't aware of this book, because it was quite a while ago. So if you're really interested in that and checking it out, check it on our website as well. It just says buy the book at the menu at the top of the retrohour.com.
Yeah, and inside there's some of our favourite interviews. It's an all-star lineup, this book. Nolan Bushnell's in there, Dominic Diamond, David Perry, of course, Earthworm Jim, Disney's Aladdin, Cool Spot, Jeff Minter, Trip Hawkins, Al Nilsson. Interesting story about how they launched and marketed the Mega Drive. Ken Williams from Sierra Online. Ed Smith's in there as well. Really interesting tale of a system called the Imagination Machine. There was a really overlooked 70s computer console hybrid. John Bird's in there as well, who tells us a story about the Dreamcast and the biggest bug in gaming history. And that Wild Bill Steely of Microprose is in there. 5 exclusive interviews that you won't have heard anywhere else in there too. Andrew Braybrook, Hank Nyborg, Dylan Cuthbert, Motohiro Kawashima, and also the guy who did the cover of our book, David Rowe, used to do the sets on Nightmare, the TV show back in the day as well, and loads of video games like James Pond. So we're really proud of this book, and if you didn't get hold of a copy of it when we did the Kickstarter, your final chance, because we're not going to get any more printed. When they're gone, they're gone. So you can get hold of your copy at theretrohour.com. It's almost like book club, this, isn't it, while we're talking about books? I actually did the foreword for a book, which you might be interested in. This is by a guy I used to work with, almost 20 years ago now, a guy called Steve. And we used to work at a radio station together on the late night shift, and we'd always end up talking about really random things. He was really into the paranormal, and he's into like exploring caves. He's always a really interesting guy to talk to. And he told me a message and said, I'm writing a book about UFOs in the 90s. It's basically his experiences of going UFO spotting and being like obsessed with stuff like the X-Files back in the day. So it's really him kind of following and revisiting the places where that defined his teenage fascination with UFOs and extraterrestrials, really. So, which is something I was always into too. He didn't realize that. He said, because obviously a lot of video games are based around aliens and UFOs. He said, maybe you can write something like on a retro gaming kind of tip. I said, no, I was massively into that, like all that back in the day. And you were a bit as well, weren't you? You were
I was kind of into like radio signals and stuff like that. We went down to the airport sometimes and saw the planes flying over and stuff. But I was never like a UFO chaser or anything like that. But I think that's really cool. It definitely fits in with the whole sci-fi and kind of 90s, 80s nostalgia as well. UFOs were quite a big thing, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I did the foreword for the book, so I actually talk about, and this is something that I'd completely forgotten about because I had to kind of recount my memories. And there was actually a CD-ROM that came out on the Amiga called Encounters, the UFO Phenomenon Exposed.
I remember that,
yeah, which I actually downloaded a copy of it again, had a little dig around there. I remember like school summer holidays, just like, 3:00 in the morning, being up, sweltering heat outside, like delving into UFO stories and stuff on there.
I bet you that was probably some of the stuff that was shared on the early internet. I bet you there were loads of like UFO sites back then. Yeah,
I think a lot of those posts, on that CD-ROM were like from Usenet and stuff as well. So it was really interesting to write it. And if you're into like UFOs, it's the book's available now called My UFO Youth. You can get it on Amazon. So shout out to Steve and thank you for inviting me to write the foreword. Now, we have got lots of news stories to bring you up to speed with, starting with something from our mate Shelby of Tech Tangents, one of my favourite YouTube channels. Had Shelby on the podcast a couple of years ago, really interesting guy. And he did a video recently that has been causing quite a bit of debate in the retro gaming and computing community. He reckons that we should all stop retrobrighting our systems. Now, is this something you've done over the years? Are you a retrobriter, Revy?
I think there's a video on my channel of me buying B-Blonde peroxide hair dye.
You got some right funny looks buying that in boots.
Putting it on a Dreamcast and retrobrighting it. Yeah, it's interesting. I've kind of after doing that, after playing about with it when it was a huge craze. It was a huge craze for ages. People were even doing it on trainers, weren't they?
Yeah,
it kind of went into the trainer world, sneakers, and I started embracing the yellow. Started going back to the yellow, but also whilst that was going on, there was lots of experiments. People were talking about using heat with it. I remember that there was it was like a collaborative process of people kind of working out how this technology works. Eventually, light brighting became a thing as well, didn't it?
Sun brighting, just leave it just out in the sun.
Yeah,
because I mean, obviously, I'm sure most people know, but the reason that these systems that were white or beige back in the day, it's bromine, isn't it? The fire retardants that are in the plastic, that the chemistry behind them, it kind of breaks down over the years. Some people reckon it's due to heat, or it could be UV lighting, and then the systems go yellow. So you probably see it in stuff like your Amigas and Dreamcasts and your Super Nintendos as well. And obviously, it's a process of reversing that using chemicals generally.
It was chemicals, and it was like a weird combination. I remember the one that I used was like B-Blonde and OxyClean, and you'd mix it all together in certain parts, and then it got refined later on. I even remember people selling like pre-made retrobrighting mixtures. It's probably interesting. Like, why are all these nerds going out and buying lots of hydrogen peroxide, which always scared me a bit, especially when it comes to the high percentages and stuff getting that.
But the reason we're talking about this is Shelby, basically he's done what they're calling like a 10-year test. So he retrobrighted his Dreamcast back in 2015, and he mentioned that was before he set his YouTube channel up. But he used hydrogen peroxide cream and sunlight, which was the same process I used to use. And you'd smear it in hydrogen peroxide cream. You'd often be advised to put cling film over it so it didn't dry out, which I do remember trying, and I got that marbling effect.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And it was interesting. And I always thought like this is going to cause some damage, just over time. But it's weird, isn't it? Like people wanting to get their kit back to the original state. This stuff was never designed to last this long, and 20 years later, people are trying to reverse the process and keep it in that really clean condition as well. I think. Do you think like really clean retrobrighted products after this study? Because this study's come out and it said that it's actually damaging, doing more harm than good. Do you think like clean retrobrighted products, the price might go down now, and because people know that they'll get wrecked in the future, and like yellow stuff, the price will suddenly skyrocket?
Well, this is something I've always known. I mean, a lot of people have said that retrobrighting doesn't last very long and it needs doing again every few years. And I've definitely noticed that. I mean, I did my Amiga 4000 keyboard probably about 2 or 3 years ago. That's kind of back to what it looked like before. But I think Shelby was quite shocked because he looked at his Dreamcast for the first time in years, and he said the areas that he retrobrighted on there have got streaking and blotching and surface damage and actually look more yellow now than they did before he retrobrighted it, which actually inspired me to dig out my Dreamcast and that I retrobrighted a few years ago. If you're watching on YouTube, you describe what it looks like for audio listeners.
Unclean teeth.
Yeah. Or like it's been in a room. You can see on the side of it,
smoker's room, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's sections of it that I didn't retrobright, which you can see the contrast in it when you open up the case, which is basically the exact same thing that Shelby saw. So whether the Dreamcast plastic is just more susceptible to it, I'm not sure, but it's definitely worth testing on other systems.
I think there was a thing about brittleness as well, wasn't there? I remember that, using the process would make brittle more plastic and make plastic more brittle and more prone to snapping and stuff like that. Is it worth it? I don't know, maybe a respray or something.
Yeah.
If you really want to do that, might start to become the thing. I've seen they've started to introduce some spray paints. I remember ones that were exactly colour matched to the Commodore Amiga and stuff.
And there's a lot of people make new cases for retro systems. I think it's probably the route to go down. Like, I'm not sure if people make new Dreamcast cases. There's got to be someone out there doing them. So I'm looking at that, and I did retrobrite that system probably about 2 years ago, and it did look fine then, but now dug it out again today, it's gone very yellow. So I'm thinking, well, it looks hideous now, and I don't like looking at it like that. So maybe I'll retrobrite it again this summer and then have to do it every 2 years. But then, if someone just made a new case that looked identical, I'd probably rather just swap the internals out. But
I if it functions internally, I'm not bothered about the yellow anymore. I'm kind of like, go for it. That's just the aging process. We're getting older,
I did use this in a YouTube video, and all the comments were, that is the most disgusting Dreamcast I've ever seen. So that's what inspired me to do it, I think. Shelby said he's not going to do it anymore. He said he's kind of given up on the retrobrighting now because it's not worth the risk. So I think now that's kind of out there. It'll be interesting to see because obviously retrobrighting, when we first started this podcast, hadn't been around that long, had it? 10 years ago. It was kind of something that people were getting into. So obviously a lot of that retrobrighting that we did a decade ago, we're kind of seeing the results of it now, whether it has actually lasted or caused any damage. So I think maybe it is worth having that conversation again. 10 years or so on. So if you want to check out that video from Shelby, really interesting watch. I'll link that in this week's show notes. Now, obviously Christmas is coming up. Maybe a bit of time to finally put work to the side and enjoy a few games. Already kind of downloading a few and looking at things that I might want to play during my week off that I'm planning on taking. And this one looks pretty cool now. This is something that I'm very excited to play on my Mega 65, that of course is compatible with the Commodore 64, or maybe my brand new Commodore 64 Starlight Edition.
Ooh.
That is currently on the way. And a lot of people will be opening those in the next few weeks. I might be looking for a cool new game to play on it. And this one looks very impressive. Now, this is... we had to talk about this, Ravi, being from Nottingham, didn't we?
Yeah.
A new Robin Hood game for the C64.
Oh, I love Robin Hood. I had a big history with Robin Hood. My dad helped build a place called the Tales of Robin Hood in Nottingham. Used to go out to
I thought you were going to say your dad worked with Robin Hood then.
Yeah, my dad was one of the merry men. He helped do that and then went out to international Robin Hood conferences and stuff around the world talking about Robin Hood. Yeah, we love that stuff. And this is called Sherwood. it's a very accurate interpretation of Sherwood Forest. This is exactly how it looks. No, it's a new C64 title. Looks beautiful, to be honest. Really like the color palette on it and the choices. It's a platformer where you're playing Robin Hood. But it's done really well. The background has this kind of beautiful tree line that gives it a lot of depth. Actually,
looks very atmospheric, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, and it's from Cytronic, who we've previously seen some amazing titles.
I love their logo. It's Ocean Software's font and logo and design, isn't it? Basically.
That's it. What do you think? You're the C64 guy. Seeing this come out.
I think it looks awesome. I think, as you mentioned then, I think having a decent kind of action platformer on the C64, there was a lot of like ropey ones that came out back in the day. And I think, this looks really smooth. I mean, it is kind of that typical plot that you've got to kind of run and climb your way through the screens, collect keys to open doors, got to rescue damsels in distress, firing arrows, solving puzzles as well, to get rid of enemies and wildlife, like you often did in these games. But I think it looks really polished to me.
Yeah, definitely polished. And, they've got a multiple release as well. So they've got a collector's edition. The box version just looks, wow, really, really well presented. They've got a tape edition. You can get disc and you can get cartridge as well. And the collector's one has fully illustrated manual, badge, keyring, CD soundtrack, A4 card as well. It's not bad for 40 quid as well, getting that. Really nice to get these kind of boxed games these days in this quality of presentation. Yeah,
I mean, it looks like it could have been a commercial. Well, actually looks better than most commercial titles that came out.
Yeah, a lot better. Yeah. Because the love and care has been put into it,
Yeah, you got hand-painted game artwork on the box in the game itself. Character animation looks beautiful as well. Loads of detailed screens that you can check out. One thing that, I mean, obviously I haven't played the game yet, but looking at the YouTube video, it looks like really fluid. The character animation and the jumping controls were apparently they're really precise in this game. Interactive scenery, which is not something you see in the Commodore 64 all that much. And one thing that's really nice is there is a digital download that you can get from itch, but also there is a downloadable printable disc sleeve and label.
Yes,
so you can make your own as well.
Cool. Yeah. And it's got PAL and NTSC compatibility as well. Cool. Depending on what system you have, really good. Yeah,
I think the fact that it works as well with the Commodore 64 Mini and the Commodore 64 and obviously the new one that's come out. So a lot of ways to play C64 titles as well. And I think this looks like this will definitely be one that I add to my my Christmas list to play over that little break. So it looks a really in-depth game as well. So
you need to play Robin Hood in the background as you play it. I think the music was quite good, actually, listening to the soundtrack. Quite decent, but it hasn't got that Robin Hood old theme tune from the 70s.
Need to do a remix for Evie.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah.
So if
they play it at the football stadium, so it's one that I'm used to.
So that as well, we're right now from Cytronic's website and their itch page as well. So we want to check that out. Something brand new for your Commodore. I'll link that in this week's show notes as well. Now, this is where we need Joe. He'd be all over this one, wouldn't he? Now, this is a one-of-a-kind Sonic arcade machine that they reckon is going to fetch at least $50,000 when this goes to auction. Now, can I show my ignorance here? I had no idea this was a thing.
I've played this.
Oh, okay. So this was Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, which was the name of it, an arcade machine that apparently was mainly in Japan, but there was a UK version of it that was in Sega World in the Trocadero, which was a big arcade that we had here in the 90s, that apparently was one of the very few English versions of this game, which they reckon is where this machine has come from.
Yeah, which I used to frequent every time I went to London. So my dad, bless him, would take me there and Mum would want to go shopping and stuff. Dad would go like, right, Trocadero. I'd be like, yes. You'd go there and the whole thing was themed Sonic. It was really cool. Going up the escalators, you'd have like rings going up. There'd be these huge CRT video walls at the side, and then you'd approach the top, and there'd be all these different games. I think that go-karting at one point upstairs. It was a huge facility, really cool. There's nothing like it.
It's really sad because I remember seeing it on TV. I didn't get to go there in the 90s, but I did go in the kind of early 2000s when it had closed down. I think it was still like a Namco arcade or something then, but they still had the rings on the escalators.
Yeah, and they'd very much like limited how it was back then, because even downstairs they had like break dancers and hackers meeting. It was like a full social space. It was really cool. And then they had like all the DDR stuff, the RG360 in the middle of it, everything. And this would be upstairs as you came in because it had a load of Sonic stuff. But I particularly remember it because I was into tracker balls.
Right.
I still am. Marble Madness was one of my favourite ones. So coming up and having a Sonic game that was done on a trackball was absolutely awesome. Do remember playing it. I was very young at the time though. But yeah, this machine, it did seem like something from a faraway land as well. Something like, this is obscure, a Sonic game with a trackball, but it kind of works as well. Yeah. With the spinning. Yeah, and obviously it seemed like something that was arcade. It's never going to come to a home thing unless Sega release an official trackball, which could be good.
But yeah, this is a game that was released in 1993. Like you mentioned, didn't get a home port, just for the arcades. It was actually developed by Sega AM3 team, not the Sonic team, and it ran on their Sega System 32 arcade hardware. Interestingly, it plays very different to Sonic that we got on the Mega Drive, for example. This is an isometric arcade action adventure game designed around trackball controls. It looks like a 3-player game from the video.
Yeah. You could do multiplayer. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can play 3 players at the same time. Viewed from that kind of 3/4 isometric angle where you roll through them rather than, Sonic usually speeds along sideways.
Was it Sonic Spin Dash or what one that was a Sonic 3D that was in that kind of style? But this is more like running along a level more in a like.
And Sonic Extreme, the cancelled one, it looks a bit like that kind of angle when you look.
It was of that era, yeah.
Yes, I mean, as you mentioned, Ravi, from what I've seen, people reckon it plays a lot more like something like Marble Madness than a traditional Sonic game. Looks brutally hard from watching the video of it as well. And Eggman's in there as well. Eggman looks really evil in this one. He's like trying to chainsaw Sonic apart, and he's got, it's like a lot more kind of dark than the versions we've got on the Mega Drive.
Brutal Eggman, yeah.
Yeah, now it turns out that it's actually a really rare cabinet to get hold of these because most of them were either converted to other games or they were, parted out or they were scrapped when arcades closed down. But this one was rescued from the Trocadero in London when they closed down back in the late 90s. So that's the one that's going to be going up for sale by Eubanks Auction House. And what's rare about this one is apparently, like, as I mentioned at the start of the story, this one is actually English language translated version of the game, which apparently is even rarer. So, I mean, it's you've got to be a pretty hardcore Sega fan to want this in your collection. I imagine it's going to be museums or maybe some arcade that wants.
Didn't they sell the Sonic that was above the Trocadero recently? So they had like Sega World Sign, and then they had a Sonic above.
We covered that, didn't we?
Sold, I think hopefully, if it's a private collector, please rip it and put it out there as the English translation, the only one out there. And if there's a museum, it'd be great to have a play on this, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how it plays. I mean, I'm going to trackball. I'm assuming you can emulate this in MAME.
I think I just remember you just hammered it and then hit the jumps, and it was like a run along kind of constantly running, and you'd have to spin at the right times and do but this is like 30 years ago, so yeah.
I love the comments on this as well. A lot of people saying, you'll pay 50 grand for it, and then Sega will send a police to break down your door and raid you next morning to get it back, which they have been doing with some stuff recently, as we know. So, just be aware of that. So, yeah, very cool. A one-of-a-kind Sonic arcade machine. As you mentioned, Ravi, fingers crossed we'll get a good rip of that so we can all enjoy it. And I think, there's a lot of stuff like this that Sega, there's a few of them in their history that they've never done home ports of. Yeah. Like Golden Axe, Death Adder game as well would be nice to see, like a kind of a lost Sonic or Lost Sega Collection. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
for Sega to put out like that one day. So very cool. One to keep an eye on. Now, we did cover a brand new Commodore 64 game at the start of the show. We're going to give the Specky a bit of love as well. We don't play favourites here, do we? Much. But I mean, I do like the Spectrum. I've got a Spectrum next. Sitting next to me down there. So, I mean, this could be something, if I get enough time over Christmas, maybe get the next out and have a play on this one, because this looks very impressive. Not often that we think of the Spectrum as being a platform for first-person shooters.
No, that's very rare. This does look impressive. It kind of looks like a very trippy nightmare. It's really cool though. It's called World of Spells. It's a first-person shooter that's come out on the Spectrum with a 3D raycasting engine. So it's performing very well, 80 frames per second, which is really, really mad to see. That it's so actually smooth, and it's got like a bit of color clash and stuff in there. So the essential Spectrum elements that you need. It reminds me of Ken's Labyrinth, one of the first ones of the Build Engine kind of shareware game that kind of started a lot of the FPS stuff, but it's like a really, really reduced down specky kind of version like that. Has there been a Doom on the Spectrum?
There is a Doom port on there. I think that I've got a feeling there might even be a Quake port on the Spectrum as well. I mean, it struggled to recognise that it's Quake, but I do think someone did do it a few years ago. But I think just even getting an FPS game up and running on something as limited as a Spectrum is genuinely impressive, particularly having an exclusive game like this.
Yeah. And, it's just absolutely bonkers. It's got a lot of the elements of an FPS in there. There's no flawed textures. But there's it looks fun, and it's available actually on cassette.
Yeah.
Which is cool, from Bitmapsoft, which are currently sold out actually. So there's a big demand for this one, and it's got quite
only 12 quid as well, which is very decent, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's got quite a good price.
Yeah, and there's digital download if you can't wait for the reprints. Nice music as well for the Specky.
Yes, very much. Yeah. That's very impressive. And it's impressive on all counts, to be honest.
Bit of a bubble kind of vibe on that, I think. Yeah, so if you're going to be having a bit of Spectrum time over the Christmas break and you want something very cool to play in a brand new FPS game, obviously don't get many of them on the Spectrum. I'll link that up if you want to get the digital download. That's available right now, or the link to order it on cassette tape when they do the next run. It's called World of Spells. Very impressive. Now, you might have seen a lot of this over the last week or so. The reviews have been out for the Analog 3D. I saw that they've been landing in a lot of people's sweaty palms over the last week or so. Of course, we've been covering it for quite a while, haven't we, since they first announced it. It's a brand new FPGA-based clone of the N64 that apparently is very nice. A lot of people
of the high end, isn't it? It's definitely for the real kind of sticklers for that accuracy and stuff like that, and the price tag reflects that as well.
Now obviously being an FPGA based device, cycle accurate with all the games, with all the mod cons that you'd expect on there too, HDMI output, also has wireless controllers, a very nice controller by 8BitDo that they put out recently as well with the original N64 colors, but it's more in line of something like a Switch Pro controller or an Xbox controller, isn't it, than the original design that we had on the N64. But the Analog 3D isn't the only player in town if you want to get hold of a new N64. Now, this was announced a while back. It is another one that's coming out, another FPGA-based clone of the N64. Actually looks a little bit more faithful to the design of the N64. This is called the M64.
Yeah, so it looks like a mini kind of N64 console with the expansion cart area in there, the mod slot, and then the kind of same design. But I think the colours are pretty weird because they look Xbox green to me. Those green Xboxes that they released that were translucent. Yeah, so screams Xbox to me, but
they did do some N64s that look like that, though, didn't they? Later on, the kind of the multicolour ones. I think it was after like Apple did their the multicolour iMacs, and everyone was doing it. So
I know they did with Game Boys. They had loads of different combinations with those. Yeah,
well, I did see the Analog are actually putting out some shells for the Analog 3D as well. This week you can pre-order those if you want that to look different, which they're also going to be doing for this one as well. So again, I mean, I'm just loving the return of transparent technology.
Yeah, I know you love that. And I think, there's room to have lots of N64 clones because it's such a huge market.
Yeah.
N64, people loved it. It was, we've had a lot of PlayStation stuff out there. It's like backwards compatibility with the PlayStation and stuff. But N64 seems like a bit of a lost kind of gem of the past for maybe a new generation. So getting hardware that works with it, as well as, the years of struggle with getting complete emulators that work really well, with bonkers games like Conker's Fur Day and stuff like that, which is just really hard to do in GoldenEye.
Which might be a reason why we're getting all these clones recently, because obviously it's a really good way of playing them accurately and having hardware. Particularly this one as well now, if you're just checking out the audio version, I'll describe what this looks like. So it's inspired by the look of the N64. You've got that kind of curved top panel with a cartridge slot on top of it. You've got the 4 controller ports on the front of it, exactly the same as the original N64 that are compatible with original N64 controllers. Interestingly, you've got the power button, but on the other side, where I think on the original N64 there was the eject button there, wasn't there? On this, it's got a dial on it.
Which looks a bit like a plastic milk bottle lid. To me.
Yeah. Which apparently, it's just called menu. So they reckon that maybe that's going to be used to navigate through on-screen menus. Does seem slightly random.
Yeah.
On the back of it, HDMI output, of course, 3 USB-C ports, and a micro SD card slot on there as well, which not exactly sure what that's for. I haven't seen any details of that, but I'm hoping it'll be to put your ROMs on there and stuff, because it has got
also it's got the 3-pronged controller, which has
which is a big story, isn't it?
The button underneath it as well, which there were some games designed to be played like that with the N64, with that weird button underneath, and I've seen other controllers not have that within it as well, so it's kind of interesting.
Z button,
to see that featured, because I never knew what it was for, when I was playing with my mates, but because I remember trying to get my head around the N64 controller when it first came around, because we were so used to the kind of traditional ones, and then like what there's I can feel something underneath, what is this? And then I guess that will probably have, I don't know if it'll have Rumble Pack compatibility or compatibility for the extra things that slotted in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, now they've only showed some pictures of this so far, which is basically the controller that comes with it is basically a recreation of the original N64 3-prong design, but in that translucent green color.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many more details. I imagine it probably is wireless, because there's no pictures of wireless.
It looks like it's USB-C as well.
All right, to charge it.
Just looking through one of the transparent images and seeing what's in the actual board, and it already looks like it's got a vibrator in there.
Built in, that makes sense, in this day and age. Are you a fan of the N64 controller? I've always had a bit of a love-hate kind of relationship with it.
I'm a fan of it when it's tight. When it gets loose on the stick, because I think was I could be wrong here, this is a quiz question, but was that the first analog thumbstick?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Oh, did the PlayStation ones come out before that?
No, sure. I think because wasn't that afterwards when they had?
You might be right. They were definitely around the same time.
Yeah, I just remember that being a new thing. Like, it's a little joystick nubbin kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, really, that controller was designed around Mario 64, really, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And interesting. I mean, I've seen pictures of because they did change the design a little bit from the prototypes when it was.
You see, that's where Joe would just be like, "Yes, it was the first one with the." He'd know straight away.
That's why we have him on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Ultra 64 controller. If you ever see pictures of that before they rebranded it to N64, it actually had what looks like a much better joystick with a bigger kind of top on it as well. It looked much more sturdy than the release version, which I've always kind of hoped someone would make that version of it. But obviously now people are making controllers for these systems. Maybe that'll happen one day. Interestingly, the team behind this is slightly controversial. Now, this is a guy called Palmer Luckey, who's behind it, who actually was the guy that founded Oculus VR.
Okay.
When he was a teenager. Obviously, Facebook bought that for $2 billion back in 2014. And these days, he's an arms dealer. So, yeah, quite the portfolio of work he's got there. So, from VR through military supply into making Nintendo clone systems. So, there's been a few people that maybe put off it a bit because of that. But it's interesting because I'm looking at this, and a few people have commented about this too, saying that surely Nintendo own the copyright on that controller design still.
It seems very close to it, doesn't it?
It's identical. Yeah, which could be a bit of a blocker. But at the moment, there is you can sign up to express your interest, and there is a wait list at the moment. It's going to be priced at $199.
You'd think that's something that they cover, knowing the litigation and like the legal style of Nintendo. Everybody's aware of that. You know, you're not going to put a product out with knowing it's a Nintendo patent. You're asking for trouble, you know.
I mean, knowing, you know, despite Palmer being a bit of a controversial figure, he's obviously got a background in business. So you think stuff like that, he'd have kind of sewn up. But it's cool. I mean, if you're an N64 fan and you want a new system, definitely not short of options at the moment, are you? So another one on the way from Mod Retro. If you want to check that out, I'll put that in the show notes too. Now, time to go back to school, Ravi. Bit of RISC OS news.
Yeah, this is bonkers. We hardly ever cover RISC OS on this podcast, and I think we should do a bit more, and we should get into that. Acorn World, international listeners, you might not know about the Acorn computers. We had them at school. Yep. They were really cool. You know, RISC OS is the kind of foundation and RISC computing.
The ARM processor came from
the ARM processor, from the Archimedes in your iPhone and also on your Raspberry Pi. But there was a whole world of Archimedes that I didn't know about because 1997 I was in the grips of Amiga, and of course the Archimedes kept going and produced some pretty cool titles. There were some good games that came out, and I always remember playing on the Archimedes. And you know, some of the versions, like the versions of Lemmings, I remember that was fantastic. Really good music on there. There's some good games. But this area of like late RISC OS games really interests me because there's some quite cool titles that seem to have come out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people regard the version of Archimedes Elite to be kind of the definitive version of it.
Yeah.
But as you say, I mean, because we use them at school, and they're quite expensive, a lot more expensive than an Atari ST or an Amiga. I think it was that reputation of being the school system that really people didn't view them as gaming machines. I think I knew one kid at school who was actually, his mum was a teacher. That's why they had an Archimedes at home, which I think he's the only guy I ever knew that had one. And he always kind of looked at games we were playing on the Amiga and thought, well, wish I could play those at home.
It's amazing, like looking at the ones on eBay, because they're all school ones and they've always got like a school name underneath them or some etched in or some markings on them. Yeah, but they were very powerful machines. I actually did a video on my YouTube channel years ago, kind of exploring what the Archimedes that was one of the first OSs that I properly got into, like you know, at school and playing around with that, and then and we also had a BBC lab as well with all the BBC machines, and then there was one point where all the BBC computers got replaced by the Acorn ones. And
Acorn made the BBC as well, the Archimedes,
the Archimedes one, it's like the upgrade, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically the 1632
like
version.
CD-ROM arrived, and there was one machine that had it and could share it on the network, and the IT guy was in charge of that. And he'd be like, "Here we go," you know.
I remember someone bringing in Doom on a floppy disk, like a demo of it from a magazine.
Oh, nice.
That on the Archimedes in our lab at school as well. So, I mean, even though we all use them back in the day, I think that the gaming power of them was kind of undertapped. But what we're talking about here is a game that came out in 1997 for the Acorn RISC OS machines. And this looks right up your street. This is a game called Exodus, the Colonization of Space, that has now been made available for modern systems on Steam.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one because I love colonization, I love civilization, I love these kind of strategy games, you know, and this is totally totally fantastic. Also got really nice like little pixel graphics as well. It reminds me of Z or Z, if you remember that one.
Yeah, Bitmap Brothers.
Yeah, Bitmap Brothers that kind of came out. It's of that ilk. It looks like a really complete, well done game with like turn-based battles. You're all kind of going into space, and then you've got different enemies, and you're kind of conquering this planet. You're putting, it's got a science tree in it as well, so you can progress like you can in Civilization, and you can have up to 14 computer opponents.
Oh wow!
Which is like
what a LAN party that would have been at school.
Yeah, bonkers. 14, and I think it's less than 2 meg that it ran on. But I looked at the videos. The soundtrack is absolutely pumping. All of the kind of transitions between it are really well drawn. It looks beautiful, and it's coming to the PC and Linux, and it's £4, 29. So if you're into that kind of Civ and colonization kind of games, I suggest taking this up and having a go on it, because for less than a fiver, you can get this really, really interesting, unique title.
Beautiful 256 color graphics as well. Pixel art. I think it's really cool.
I would have died for this on the Amiga.
What do you remember? That's what I was thinking. There were kind of that late era of the Amiga as well. I remember a game that came out probably about 98, Napalm.
There was Napalm, but then Amiga had Dune 2. I don't know if Dune was on the Acorn. It probably was.
Yeah, but it's cool to kind of see these games that only came out really late in the life of these specific platforms that the rest of the world completely ignored and didn't know anything about, now being made available for everyone to play.
That's the great thing. You don't need to fire up an emulator. You don't need to do that. You can just play this one, and it gives them a bit of a more exposure. We're talking about it, but also a second lease of life. Really cool. I can't wait to explore this galaxy.
There's Ravi's Christmas game sorted.
That's it.
So everyone check this out. And if you love those kind of old school RPG games, now available for you to check out on your modern system. Exodus, the colonization of space, now available on Steam for Windows and Linux. Now, we've got one more story to talk about in a second that is kind of funny. Before we do that, let's take a quick second to give a massive thank you to our mates at Bitmap Books. I did say it's kind of like a book club on the podcast this week. Got another book in my hand here, and this one I think is, listen to this, definitely the biggest book that we've talked about in the podcast so far this week. This is their incredible new book that is all about the history of video game controllers. Now, this weighs in at 395 pages. Now, authored by Christian Wenk, who I think this is such a good idea. We're hopefully going to have Christian on the podcast in the new year as well to kind of geek out about, the best game controllers and some of the worst in history too. And this is a visual celebration of video game controllers. Now, it's actually co-authored by legendary games journalist Steve Jarrett. Of course, we've had on the show before. He used to work for Future Publishing back in the days, editor of Amiga Format for a bit, wasn't he, in Edge?
Yeah.
I think he was the launch editor of Edge back in the day. But this book, it really is a celebration of some of the finest and not so good controllers of all time. Any that spring to mind for you, Ravi, if we're talking best and worst?
Best and worst. Oh God, I know you're a fan of the Atari Jaguar, but that whole kind of dial pad at the bottom was very interesting. Also, like Sega Bass Fishing, just the innovative ones. Guitar Hero itself.
Yeah.
The Wiimote, I'm a huge fan of. CD32, I put out on Facebook that it's a bad controller. Some people love it. I hated it. I'm sorry.
It broke very easily, I remember.
Yeah, I used to give the CD32 to people and the controller, and they go, it's upside down. What? Yeah, so it's really interesting to talk about, because I think the controllers are like, the interface that we play games with. It's
so important.
Our way of connecting our body to the games, basically.
Yeah, and it can make or break a game, can't it? There are some games that I can only play with a certain controller. Try anything else, I'm just dreadful at them. So, and it kind of talks about all the innovations and some of the oddities in there too. There's even stuff like the the cheetah kind of character joysticks.
Yeah.
That came out back in the
we were
90s.
just talking about the N64 controller as well. So
yeah, that's obviously in there. Even stuff like, the ones that everyone regards as being incredible competition pros, of course, in the Zip Stick, the CX40, the Neo Geo PC Engine, PlayStation as well. And it's interesting because there's some really good anecdotes in here as well. Trip Hawkins features in the book.
Great.
James Rolfe is in there as well. Kev Bayliss, our mate from Rare. John Romero. I
think the cool thing about this book is you can look at the really nice controller that you used, and you can look at the awful one that you gave your brother.
Yeah. Thank God I didn't have to play with that. It's interesting because in here is the first ever joystick I owned, which was the Commodore Plus 4 joystick, which was I mean it looked pretty nice, but it was definitely not a great controller to play on. I think we had Bill Hurd on the podcast years ago. And he was talking about how they came up with that design. He actually snapped the prototype, saying it needed to be stronger. So he broke it like a $10,000 prototype just to prove a point. So, some great stuff in here, good and bad. So, as you said, Ravi, it's really our connection to the game, isn't it, controllers?
And, Bitmap books, the quality of their books is just insane. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. And they've supported the podcast for so long. It's fantastic to, work with them.
Yeah, and they're going to continue working with us throughout 2026 as well. So, love working with Sam and the crew at Bitmap Books. We thank them for their support. If you want to hold your copy right now, they are in stock at Trigger Happy, a visual celebration of video game controllers, online at bitmapbooks.com. Let them know that we sent you. Now, we have got a few extra stories on the way just for our patrons in a second, and we'll update you on some plans for Christmas that you might want to join us for in a moment. Before we do that, can we just talk about, since Joe's not here, Ravi, that we could finish on a proper geeky one.
Really gone down the geeky route. I mean, a RISC OS story.
We knew it was going to happen. Been saving them all up, haven't we, for the day? Now, did you ever use Windows 3.1 as a kid?
I did, and it felt like a huge step back in operating systems, even at the time when I was using RISC OS and I was using the Amiga OS and even TOS. It felt like a step back from it. Felt incredibly boring and Microsofty at the time.
Funny that. Well, one thing that did have a bit of personality about Windows 3.1, and I think if you mention Windows 3.1 to anyone today, this is generally probably the one thing that they'll remember about it. Because you remember on Windows 3.1, one thing that it did come with that a lot of the other operating systems didn't come with was actually themes.
Yes,
so I say themes, it was basically just recoloring things on the screen.
Different color palettes, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And the one most people talk about is one called Hotdog Stand.
I remember it was disgusting. Yeah, because I used to spend a lot of time customizing operating systems, and then when I was in my Windows 3.1 setup, I'd kind of choose this as a bit of a joke, but you'd be on an older monitor as well, and it would look very different. It was kind of yellow with bright red. Yeah, kind of a very fast foody McDonald's inspired operating system theme. Yeah.
There's a great article on PCGamer.com. Now, this is by Wes Fenlon, who he said he's setting the record straight on the true story of the garish hotdog stand from Windows 3.1. And
this is so niche, this story, Dan.
Well, I mean, he's traced it back. So, I mean, there have been other articles written about this. Back in 2005, a blogger called Jeff Atwood was talking about Hotdog Stand. And he reckons the reason they put that in there was as a joke. He said it must have just been a bit of a giggle. And then there were a few other people talking on there saying that maybe the reason it was put in there was, for people with visual impairments. Maybe, maybe that was it, kind of accessibility reasons. But then on Atwood's article from 2005, a year later, someone who worked on it, who they reckon they were the creator of the scheme, who apparently presented a seminar on UI design in 1997. PJ14, the name is on this. She said, really, the real reason that it was in there as Hotdog was actually a challenge from the Windows 3.1 team to come up with the worst possible color scheme that they could using the 16 colors in there, which was interesting. Like, basically, the team were daring each other to create the most hideous theme that they ever could.
Yeah.
So that was the theory, and that was what this commenter, PJ14, said, 20 years ago now.
What did you do on 3.1? I did a lot of DOS. I kind of ignored the OS, but I remember there was a few games. Jazzball was one, and a Sim Tower as well, which required 3.1 to run Sim Tower.
I mean, I didn't have a 3.1 machine at home. I used it at school because we did get a few PCs in, when we had the RISC machines in as well, the Acorn machines. We got a couple of Windows PCs. It kind of crept in. And I think, by the time I left school, they'd moved them all over to PCs running Windows 3.1. And then I came back in my final year and they'd upgraded them all to Windows 95.
Yes.
So I only really used it for school stuff. I remember running like Word and things on it. I think, Windows 3.1 might have been the first operating system I got on the internet with on the World Wide Web.
Well, it seemed like two separate entities as well. You'd have DOS and you'd have Windows 3.1, and you'd not really need to load Windows for that many things unless you were going to do your Excel sheets or going to do, something like that, and you'd just fire up your games in DOS.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Windows 3.1 machine now, but again, if I want to go back to gaming on my 486, it's always in DOS. I don't really run anything in Windows. But getting back to this hot dog theme then, so basically this new article that's just been released this week is actually tracked down the original UI designer who used to work at Microsoft. Her name is Virginia Howlett, and she confirmed that she used to lead a small design team, and their job was to make a suite of themes. And obviously back then, 1991, 92, that was radically different from what was in most operating systems, being able to theme them. But she said, actually, it wasn't in there as a prank. Really, she said they just wanted to cover all aesthetic bases. So there might have been some users who preferred wild, bright, zany colours. But she's also kind of amazed that people remember it 35 years later. And the fact that it's become kind of one of computing's most memorable oddities. So
I'm just waiting at Christmas for you to get a hot dog stand themed tracksuit or t-shirt or something like that.
Didn't they put those out a couple of years ago? Christmas jumpers, I think, Mike. Because Microsoft normally do a hideous Christmas jumper.
That would be the most hideous.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether they've done that one, but I'm sure there's going to be one available in the next week or two. So fingers crossed, Ravi. Close your eyes really tight. Might get one from Santa this year. So a really interesting story. Like you said, Ravi, very niche. But that's the kind of stuff I love when people just think, why did that exist? And get all that effort tracking someone down. So if you ever wondered about the history of the Hotdog Stand theme from Windows 3.1, now you know. I'll put that and the rest of the stories in this week's show notes. So thank you for checking out the final news of 2025. We'll be back again in the new year, updating you with probably a month's worth of stories. That first one back in January is always a bit manic, isn't it? We have to kind of chop and choose what we're going to cover.
Oh, God, so much comes out,
That might be a bit of a longer show. Next week, though, as we mentioned, our Christmas special. So, Retro Hour annual Christmas super quiz. Of course, feel free to play along at home. If you haven't checked it out before, because I know we've got a new audience on YouTube now, small but growing one on there. Might not be familiar with the quiz. Basically, it's 45 minutes or so, 10 rounds of 10 questions normally, related to all aspects of retro gaming and tech. We don't take it too seriously.
No.
I put that out there.
Saying that, you get serious when it happens.
We'll see you next week. So we're going to be joined by patrons as well. So it's going to be basically our on-air Christmas party, isn't it? So if you want to join us for that, that's going to be landing next Friday, final Friday before Christmas, which blows my mind. That's only a week away now. Friday, 19th of December, that will land. We're not going to be releasing an episode on the 26th. Because we figure most people will be either too stuffed from eating or slightly hungover.
Boxing Day in the UK, there's probably plenty on television and stuff. We always have like a little break. It's mad, isn't it? Like we produce a podcast every kind of week, and we're like, oh, we feel guilty about 1 week break.
Well, actually, on the 2nd of January as well, we figured, because most people are still off work doing family stuff, that week we're going to treat everybody to one of our patrons' exclusive podcasts, the After Hours. We're going to pick one from the archives and put that out. There's a little bit of a taster as what you can get for our patrons. So the next full episode with the news will be back on Friday, 9th of January in the new year. But while we're talking about Patreon, it's a very good time to sign up, because they're coming up next Sunday, 21st of December. That's going to be our massive Patrons Christmas party. Yeah,
which is going to be really cool. I always love it. We have a big chat with people from all over the world. I was looking at it and I'm like, what an international bunch, people from Australia getting up in the morning. We have people in Europe and America, all over. It's fantastic. And also I was just thinking, if you do miss the podcast, if you signed up to Patreon, How many episodes do you get of the After Hours podcast?
So we were trying to count these. I for some reason thought it was episode 50. Then we looked and I said, oh no, it must be episode 49. But on my list it says episode 50. So I'm not sure. It's either 49 or 50. Yeah, let's say 50.
So if you sign up, you get access to all of those, which is really crazy. And you also get access to an exclusive RSS feed. So you can put that into your client and, where you listen to your podcasts on the podcast app or something, and you get the ad-free episodes and you get a bit of an extra news story as well, which is cool every single week. And you get the patrons video supercut as well, which is basically the whole video with the patrons news in it as well as the interview in one kind of huge format. We put them out individually at different times on YouTube at the moment, but the patrons get one massive cut, like a weekly TV show basically.
Yeah, 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So, plenty of watching. So if you join us on Patreon, very good time to do it. And of course, as we go into the new year, really helps support the show as we continue into 2026. So your support massively appreciated. And if you want to get an invite to our Christmas party, all the details at theretrohour.com. So thank you so much for checking out the news this week. I'll put all the stories in the show notes. You don't have to Google around. Check your podcast app or the video description if you're on YouTube, or you can head to the website, theretrohour.com. I'll put them all up there every single week. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure that you're here next Friday for our final episode of 2025. We're going to be doing our most fun episode of the year, the annual Retro Hour Christmas quiz. And play along at home. We'll see you for that next Friday.